carpet or iron them out to have a better electoral process in the year 2022. And like we say, this cartoon here is speaking volumes with regard to the state of elections in our country. All right, let's take a look now at what's making headlines on the Daily Nation. On the front page there, Date with Destiny. So after 2 days of televised drama on the floor of the Supreme Court and punches and counter-punches of alleged irregularities, judges will today emerge to deliver the decision on Raila's petition against Uhuru's re-election. We'll be waiting for that. Of course, the men at the top of this petition, one Raila Odinga, Uhuru Kenyatta, and Wafula David Maraga, rather, who is the president of the Supreme Court. He's also been put on the spot, considering he had quite a bit to say about the outcome of the 2013 presidential petition. What will he do differently this time? Only time will tell. But let's take a look at still on the front page, a big break for Kenya's most unlikely members of parliament. And like they say, politics is a game of numbers, but for these new legislators, it's a rather gutsy business of chances. So a few months ago, they went hunting in the dark, and yesterday took their oath of office. We have here Fatuma Dilo, senator for Isiolo. We also have Ephraim Maina, who is the Nyeri senator. Do follow their stories on page 3 of the Daily Nation, of how they got to where they are today. But the headline on page 3 is 12th Parliament, a mix of familiar and new faces, with who's back in 2017, the likes of Embu Senator Njeru Ndwiga, Ephraim Maina also having come back. And the question is, with this mix of new and old faces, what are we likely to see different in the 12th Parliament? Are we likely to see a flexing of superiority for those who hold a majority, or are we likely to see parliamentarians put aside their political differences and focus on what is good for the country? Remember, in the 11th Parliament, we also had members of Parliament who did not pass a single motion, and well, some of us don't even know their names. So will we have another situation like that? Only time will tell again. But let's take a look at page 4 of the paper. Let integrity rule, Justin Muturi tells members of parliament after he retained his position as a Speaker of the National Assembly. And a very touching speech there by Justin Muturi soon after that, asking members of the 12th Parliament, rather, to put aside their political differences and ensure that integrity rules. Of course, he will be at the helm of the 12th Parliament, the National Assembly, to take a look at how business is being conducted. A lot of support for Justin Muturi, and clearly a lot of confidence in his role as a Speaker of the National Assembly. Meanwhile, Kenneth Lusaka here, as he lands the top Senate post, calls for unity again within the Senate when it comes to political differences being put aside. Something we will be discussing, considering that a precedent has already been set yesterday with the opposition members of Parliament only attending the swearing-in and not taking part in the election of top parliamentary seats, and the fact that we also had the likes of Babu Wino again pledging allegiance to one Raila Odinga. Is that an indication that political differences will be set aside in the 12th Parliament? A conversation we'll be having in just a moment on the Dawn debate. Do catch here page 6 of the Nation there, which has intrigues by lawmakers during the ceremony, and it was quite an intriguing one. There were some who ferried supporters all the way from their rural areas only to be denied access to Parliament. With regard, there was also a lot of security outside Parliament, so that was quite a scene to take a look at. Do grab your copy of the Nation for that on page 6 of the paper. And let's take a look now at page 11 of the paper. Court directs state to get Facebook killer a lawyer. This is an interesting report of a man who allegedly killed a 26-year-old who he met on Facebook on their first day. He was yesterday arraigned in court but did not plead to a murder. This is an interesting report on the dangers of social media, really, and the fact that we do not know who sits on the other side of the phone or the computer that we are speaking to. So this is a man, Richard Ogoko, allegedly killed a woman he met on Facebook on their first date, but the court, of course, now asking the state to get him a lawyer. An interesting story to read, especially with regard to our own personal security on the internet. All right, and let's take a look now at the cartoon on page 14 of the paper. Once again, that is the Daily Nation. And Kenyans, Wanjiku is eagerly waiting and looking at the Supreme Court. Of course, that is where the decision on the presidential petition will be coming from. One says is orange smoke. The other one says, no, we're seeing red smoke. And others say, oh, wait, maybe it's both orange and red smoke. So quite a lot of anxiety for Kenyans as to what decision the Supreme Court will take. Will they uphold the red smoke, which means upholding President Uhuru Kenyatta's re-election? Or will there be orange smoke, meaning they have invalidated the re-election, calling for a fresh election within the next 60 days? That is something we will only have to wait and see. Let's take a look now at what's making headlines on the Star newspaper. On the front page there, we will live to fight another day. Raila Odinga tells his supporters that whatever the outcome, they are winners of this election. That continues on page 4 and 5 of the Star newspaper this morning. Raila Odinga tells his supporters that whatever the outcome of the petition, they should all give thanks to God, and they are still winners. And it's interesting and refreshing, rather, to see this coming from one Raila Odinga as they await the decision of the Supreme Court. So he declares that life will not come to an end after the decision of the court. Also, President Uhuru Kenyatta has time and time again been quoted asking Kenyans and the opposition to also accept the verdict of the Supreme Court as it is. And so let's take a look at what is next after the decision of the Supreme Court. That is on page 5 of the paper. Just in passing, what happens if the Supreme Court upholds President Uhuru Kenyatta's win? President Uhuru Kenyatta will then be sworn in on the 12th of September. That is just 11 days from today. If the court upholds his win, he will also have to name the cabinet and reorganize government as the duly elected president, and he will also address Parliament at a date to be appointed within 30 days. Remember, the decision of the Supreme Court will be final. But if the Supreme Court annuls this election, there will be a fresh election to be held within 60 days. And election, that means that it will be held on the 1st of November as enshrined in the 2010 Constitution. So this will mean that Uhuru Kenyatta will continue serving as president until the next head of state is sworn in, and that means that there will be an election rerun between Uhuru and Raila only. But a lot of questions still linger there, that if there is a rerun, what then is to guarantee Kenyans that this election will be free of electoral irregularities? What then is to guarantee Kenyans that they can have trust in the current electoral commission? So again, pundits there say we may be looking at a constitutional crisis, but it is something we will have again to wait to see the decision of the court and then see what is next for the country's political destiny. And on page 6 of the paper, rather, Nairobi will not be reverted to national government, says Mike Sonko, confirming that the county and the national government had formed a joint committee that had been meeting to discuss areas of collaboration. And of course, the petition overshadowing a lot of things, but there are questions as to what the newly elected governors are planning to do for their counties. The man at the spotlight now is one Mike Sonko, being the governor of the capital city of the country there. A lot of promises from Mike Sonko, including getting rid of traffic within 100 days. We'll be waiting to see whether that will be possible. But do take a copy of the Star newspaper on page 6 there and take a look at what Mike Sonko plans, or how he plans rather, to collaborate with the national government. And on page 7 of the paper, finally, as we wind up on our paper review, Muturi retains his Senate Speaker's seat as NASA lawmakers snub vote. Like I mentioned earlier, NASA lawmakers did attend the swearing-in, even after saying they would not attend the swearing-in, but did not take part in the election of top parliamentary seats. And this is a discussion we will be having in just a moment on the dawn debate. What does this signal to? And is this a symbol of lack of respect for the parliament, which really is a mark of the